Hello, everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. You may also hear my adorable co host, Nora, journeyman storyteller and initiate to the Seventh Circle of Lore, working about back in the labs here. But pay that no mind for now. We are taking a look at using what you know once again. I have to admit, somewhat sheepishly, that last time around I let myself read, a handful of pages of history I'd written for a custom world I'd been creating. I hope that was found to be somewhat useful, but I did kind of let myself get a little bit sidetracked and forgot to mention some other things that had gone into creating this world, and in order to provide other examples of using what you know to great effect, as well as a few other things that I had hoped to have gotten to last time around. So today we're going to do that with part two for using what you know, and then we're going to move on from there to the next DM guide topic, whatever that may end up being. So one of the things I wanted to mention was, I brought up the topic of using mythology and having studied history and just being fascinated by, mythology, fantasy, fiction in general. I like using mythology. And for this particular world, Golnea, one of the mythologies, one of the actually pantheons and deities I'd created is the core primary patron deity for the Corvarian Empire, and that is Olin the Watcher. Now, he's known as the Great Watcher, the Eye Above. His symbol is a watchtower that has lanterns hanging from it. Another particularly holy symbol of his is the all revealing eye, or the revealing bullseye lantern, just an open lantern that has a light source emanating from it. And he's a lawful neutral deity focused on rooting out secrets, maintaining law and order, maintaining a constant vigil. Now that and he demands that of his followers, and he has two favored weapons. One is the spear. The humble spear is an effective weapon. Pretty much anybody with two working arms and legs can pick it up and learn to use it relatively effectively fairly quickly, as it gives them, nice reach advantage, good leverage, and, lets them maintain distance. And if you have a group of spears just bristling out at you, good luck trying to fight that. The other favored weapon of his is the flail, basically just representing the lantern and how he's always carrying it in his hand. Now, in ancient times, before the world had really fully formed, Olian the Watcher had set about unraveling the mysteries of the universe. No matter what it was, he would go reveal its secrets, understand it, and put it to right and put it to order if he so thought it needed to. So, often enough, undoing those secrets was enough, but another deity within the same pantheon saw that this was going to create problems. With no mysteries left in the world, it could potentially unravel all of existence, undo that element of the unknown that allowed things to keep expanding and keep going. And so, his elder brother, Nilo the Elder, a god of shadows, secrets, mysteries, secreting things away, uh, took it upon himself in order to undermine his brother. Thank you, little one. My goodness. The inner workings of these spells, the intricate complexities. Gaze upon them and marvel and wonder. Yes, indeed, little one. So cool. Thank you. In order to undermine his brother and stymie his efforts, he bound himself to his brother's shadow. So now, because this is a secret, something hidden away, and not only that, it's his brother, Olin the Watcher is forever searching for his brother now. But because he will never put down his lantern, his shadow will always be at his back, containing his brother. So, in doing so, he stopped his brother from unraveling all the mysteries of the universe, and this helped to balance out the forces of creation and chaos. There was still some mystery, some random happenstance, some chaos still at work. just enough to keep creation going, keep the world, keep the universe, the multiverse, the planes expanding and ever growing. But it allowed for life to happen and take place. Now, this is just one example of mythology. It's a custom one that I've created based off of so many other. Like, I love trickster myths. I mean, Raven, stories of the ravens, different cunning foxes. Absolutely wonderful stories. Also, a wonderful story, Side Jobs by Jim Butcher. I'm not being paid to say this, I'm just a fan. Wonderful book, pick it up. Oh my goodness. Hold on a moment, we are facing some technical difficulties here as the journeyman storyteller and initiate of lore is now beginning to dig into things at a rapid pace. We'll be back in just a moment. And we're back, but this is not a dinosaur story. Now, we left off at, mythology and different stories that I've drawn from, a lot of Native American myths, but those myths are not the only ones that have trickster spirits. Certainly Loki from Norse myth is a mainstay, a staple. But there's more than that we can use. I mean, even if you're not a big fan of history or mythology, which interesting given the hobby that we've gotten into, but whatever, all walks of life, all that fun jazz. There are other things that we can draw from and use. For example, if you, who doesn't love comedy? Who doesn't love to laugh? Well, for me, Groucho Marx, the Marx Brothers, are absolutely hilarious sources and examples of just great humor, and it's relatively family friendly ish, although that's not the only genre I leave myself in. Ron White comes to mind, so does George Carlin and Richard Pryor. But with the Marx Brothers, a particularly favorite story of mine from Groucho Marx, I forget which show it was he was hosting, and I'm remembering most of this off the top of my head, but there's this couple that he ended up, talking to, doing the little bit of banter with on his show, and he goes, so you've been married a long time. You have any kids? And the wife goes, oh, yes, we have 13 children. And he goes, holy cats, 13 kids. How did that end up happening? And she goes, oh, well, I just love my husband. And Groucho responded, lady, I love my cigar, but I take it out of my mouth every once in a while. uh, Sorry, it's absolutely incredible. And you can use comedy to great effect in your own stories. I mean, then the players have a little bit of downtime and they go to a tavern, listen to a bard, take in a show, and, well, tavern and bard, they could even, if you're playing D20 Modern or even Shadowrun or Starfinder, they could just go to a club and listen to a bit of comedy. And it can be a setting that you just make feel a little bit more alive, throwing in the occasional anecdote, especially if it's largely focusing on uh, player interactions, either with each other or with the various NPCs, if it's mostly a skill based challenge, whether it's social or perception, sense motive, and the like, diplomacy, or if somebody's sitting down and gambling. Or, if there's a thief running through the crowd, lots of sleight of hand and stealth checks there. A lot of different things could be used there, but the setting can be made to feel that much more alive. Hell, if you're a bartender, you know what a bar sounds and feels like. If you've been to bars, you know what bars sound and feel like. All of these different things, these different experiences that we've had, can absolutely be used to flesh out and fill out these various details. And again, just make these worlds feel that much more alive. Now, with that said, you don't need to necessarily go super overboard. Certainly, what I've been doing is, a lot of world building that most of the players probably are really not going to dig all that much into. It's as much for me as it is for anybody else, because knowing how this world came to be, the situation that's arisen, the political and economic dispositions, these help a lot to inform a lot of the answers that I will provide to players. As it stands with the current situation, I've read up on the histories of, the assault of the Golgor war host upon the Silver Spire holds, well, those orcs ended up being enslaved. The survivors were enslaved afterwards, and their descendants for generations were made to keep working. Now, here's the thing. Orcs typically live, around humanish sort of lifespans, giving out around 60 to 80 years old. Well, they tend to die a little bit faster in slave conditions, and the dwarves, so hardened and embittered and filled with hatred towards these enemies, even more so than normal, given the destruction they had to go through with them, kept them as slaves for a long time, and they only have gone about maybe a generation since that war. And the previous generation, some of the younger survivors from that war still have very fresh memories of what happened. So that anger hasn't gone away. Whereas these generations of orcs, they're being punished for something their ancestors did, about 5 generations back. These people essentially had very little to do with what had happened before. And so they threw an uprising, slave rebellion, ended up being successful enough, and they caught the dwarves off guard badly enough and still depleted relatively enough that they were actually able to capture the Silver Spire hold and kick the dwarves out of it, and also managed to fight off a combined effort from the Silver Spire dwarves and the Corvarian Empire. The Corvarian Empire, which recently went through their own reforms, in which their current emperor had successfully ended slavery, creating a more skilled workforce that now were being paid, and just as importantly, were now being taxed, increasing the coffers and revenue for the empire. But he's still in this awkward position of he ended slavery because it was the right thing to do, both morally and economically. And now he's helping a repressed people, or helping trying to repress and suppress people that had agitated for their own freedom. It's unfortunate what happened with the dwarves, but now he's in this awkward position where he's fighting hard against something that he really doesn't believe in. And yeah, it ended up the fighting dragged on enough into a hard enough stalemate that he could justify brokering a peace, even though it pissed off the dwarves. The dwarves weren't exactly in a position to argue against it either, because the orcs had just outfarted. 12-year-old me will giggle at that forever. Outfought a combined army of dwarves and men, and yeah, now the Empire is currently trying to help resettle the Silver Spire dwarves. Some of the dwarves are trying to negotiate with the orcs of the newly christened Three Tusk Hold in order to at least visit and tend to sacred family burial sites, which the orcs have kept intact, both as a moral imperative as well as negotiating leverage against the dwarves. As these sacred tombs are now held hostage, essentially, the dwarves have more reason to acquiesce to their requests and meet certain demands and conditions and allow trade to continue as the empire's helping them resettle and finding a new place where they can set up and possibly even move the remains of various ancestors. But I could probably spend too much time digging into all of that. There are so many things that you can use. I'm not much of a car person, but I've been learning about different types of awesome cars, and there's great shows on Netflix that do breakdowns on different builds for really, really damn cool cars that you can make use of to help enrich your worlds. Use everything at your disposal. Everything can be useful for telling incredible stories. Now, since I've been telling this incredible story here, if you've made it this far, I'm guessing you liked the video, so why not pop on down below and click like. And also, there are going to be videos popping up here that the almighty YouTube algorithm, one thinks that will be entertaining for you, useful to you. Another one is something that I may have done recently. And if you've been enjoying content here so far, well, go on down and subscribe. We're certainly happy to have more alum and members here at the Gamers Den. But with that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Thank you all so much for your time. You all have yourselves a good night.